boys and girls. So yesterday we were talking about sharing opinions. So you were asked to take a side. Did you think that Franny makes good choices, or do you think that Franny does not make good choices? So today we're going to be focusing on the why. Why do you think that? When you're stating an opinion about anything, you always want to have reasons to back up your opinion because it makes your argument even stronger. So today you're going to be focusing on what you think. For example, I chose that I think that Franny does not make good choices. One of my reasons for why she doesn't make good choices is because she doesn't think about the consequences of her actions. So she kind of acts without thinking of how could she get in trouble for this. She doesn't really think about that. And my example that backs up my reason is when Franny thinks that it's a good idea to write a note to Maria Cross, even though her dad said, do not mess with that woman. You and Elliot have to leave her alone. But they didn't listen, and they still wrote the note to her, and it became a disaster. So I have my opinion, which my opinion was that Franny does not make good choices. I have my reason, which was Franny doesn't think about any consequences for her actions. And then my example was about writing the note to Maria Cross, even though her dad said, no, you have to leave that woman alone. So that is what you will be doing today. And then once you're done with that, you can go ahead and send it to me or Mrs. Belford, and we will take a look at that and give you some feedback, okay? So in our last chapter, Franny and Elliot and Tinley, they're at this hobby store where they're buying supplies because they decide that they want to make a sign that says, do not eat at Baloo, right? So they can let the public know, don't come to this restaurant because why? Do you guys remember why? Franny says that they have bugs there, right? Now, do they have bugs or do they not have bugs? We don't know for sure. But we do know that Franny and Elliot both said that they were 100% sure, right? Tinley asked them, Franny, are you 100% sure? Elliot, are you 100% sure? So let's continue to read and see what is going to happen next. We are on chapter 11. When I got home, my parents were in the TV room watching the boring news of the world. Just as I was about to get too bored, I saw a newscaster standing in front of Balloon. This brand new restaurant, Baloo, has a pest of a problem. According to the signs, it seems Baloo is serving up more than food. It's serving bugs. Leslie Eisenberg was there last night, so we asked her to tell us what she saw. Leslie Eisenberg's head filled up the screen. I didn't see a thing. At some point, people just started screaming and half the restaurant ran out. That's certainly not a very good sign, the newscaster said. I know I won't be making reservations there anytime soon. Ed, back to you. And that is when my parents turned off the TV and looked at each other. Bugs, my dad shouted, slapping his hand onto his knee. Then turned to my mom. Bugs, she asked. They both looked straight into my eyeballs. Bertie, did you see any bugs at Baloo? Asked my dad. It was time for me to tell them. Yes, as a matter of fact, I did. I was the one to tell Maria Cross all about the bugs. Their expressions turned serious. What exactly do you mean? My mom asked. I told them all about seeing the bugs on the plate and writing the note to Maria Cross and how she read it and then everyone ran out of the restaurant. And also about how we put up the signs that made it on the actual boring news of the world. I didn't even take a breath until I finished speaking. What did these bugs look like exactly? My dad asked. They had tiny heads popping out of their shells. And that is when I realized something. And that was this. The bugs looked like snails. Slimy, slippy, disgusting nails. And revolting. I don't know why my brain didn't think of this sooner. Sometimes it forgets things when it gets too full. But you will not even believe this. Instead of being proud of me for saving everyone's lives, they got upset. And then the worst news of the world came down into my ears. And you are not going to believe your ears when you hear this next news. At French restaurants, people eat snails. The fancy name for it is escargot. But how do we know that grown-ups like eating snails? How about asking, my dad said. I squinched my face at that one. Asking. Elliot and I hadn't even thought of that. We just went ahead and assumed. Assuming is when you think of something you know. Assuming is when you think you know something without asking. Mostly, I haven't started to learn that when I assume things, I'm actually wrong. Boys and girls, do you think that Franny was assuming things in our last book that we read too? Yeah, she was. She was assuming that Mr. Sanders was fired from the news station, so she assumed that her filling in for him would be a great way to save the day. Here she is assuming again. Let's just go back and put a sign on the restaurant saying we were wrong, I suggested. And that is when my parents started to get really frantical. My dad was worried about the signs being up. My mom was worried about the story being on the news. My dad was worried about Maria Cross. My mom was worried about the restaurant. I could not even believe that mistaking snails for bugs would cause all this worry. Chapter 12. I'll drive into town and take down the signs, my dad said as he grabbed his car keys off the coffee table. And when I get back, I'm going to call Ellie's parents to make sure they speak to Tinley so that nothing like this happens again. My stomach dropped when I heard this. I hoped Elliot's parents wouldn't get too angry-ified with Tinley. As my dad rushed out the door, my mom rushed over to the computer. That's where she found out how to call the television station and also how to call Maria Cross. She called the news and told them the whole story. However, and nevertheless, I had to call Maria Cross on my very own. How can I call her? I don't even know her, I asked my mom. I knew right away that I shouldn't have said this because of the way the breathing holes in my mother's nose got bigger and rounder. That certainly didn't stop you from sending her a note, my mother said in a talk shout. Now you have no choice but to deal with the consequences. It is a scientific fact that I do not like to deal with consequences. Consequences are the bad things that happen to you after you've done a bad thing. I was very nervous and frightened about talking to Maria Cross. Grown-ups can be very scary sometimes, especially the kind that you've never met before. I took the phone into my bedroom and closed the door because I needed to be all by myself. Otherwise, I would get too nervous. I opened my music box and took out a couple of jelly beans. After I finished them, I was ready to call. The phone rang again. The third time it rang, it only rang half because someone picked up. And we are going to stop there, boys and girls, because there's only a little bit of the story left. And tomorrow we are going to finish Frankly Franny, Check Please. And we'll find out what Maria Cross has to say or who's answering that phone, right? So today you will be finishing up your opinion graphic organizer that's having you think about if Franny makes good choices or if she makes bad choices, and you're thinking about those reasons and those examples to back up your opinion, right? Before I let you go, I want to talk about one other thing. I noticed a similarity at the end of this book where Franny is now calling to apologize for something she's done. Do you guys remember something similar to that in the last book that we read? Yeah, when she had to apologize to Mr. Sanders and when she had to apologize to the mayor as well. So there's another similarity that I noticed. I know we talked about similarities last week, but I noticed tons of similarities in this book to our last Frankly Franny book. So boys and girls, I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe and healthy. If you have any questions, let me know, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.